For more than a century, the Galactic Empire believed Earth had simply disappeared. It wasn't destroyed, and it wasn't attacked. At least, not officially. But it had become quiet. Too quiet. Not a single signal, transmission, or spacecraft came from the Sol system. Earth, once known for its unpredictable spirit and strong will, had gone completely dark. Scanners showed no signs of life. The once busy system now looked like a ghost town, empty and forgotten. Most species in the galaxy quickly lost interest. The humans burned out, they said. Too weak to survive the real galaxy. In official records, Earth was marked as a lost world. And slowly, people stopped asking questions. But in reality, Earth had not vanished. Humanity had simply chosen silence. It wasn't because of fear or defeat, but because they had seen the truth. In their short time as part of the galactic community, humans had learned that most advanced species were driven by pride, greed, or control. Alliances were shallow, trade was unequal, and those who rose too quickly were often crushed without mercy. Earth's first few colonies were taken over by trade deals that left them without rights. Their ships were monitored. Their diplomats were laughed at. And when a human science vessel went missing near the Empire's border, no one offered help. Instead, the galactic powers blamed Earth for crossing into restricted space. That was the moment everything changed. Humanity knew it could not grow in a galaxy like this, not openly. So, they vanished. Slowly, carefully. First, they shut down public transmissions. Then, they recalled their explorers. One by one, Earth's known outposts went dark. Other species thought the humans were failing, but behind thick nebula clouds and inside dead star systems, they were only just beginning. Hidden from scanners, humans started building something new. On frozen moons and deep underground bunkers, they created what they called the Arc Network, a secret system of intelligent machines, learning computers, and cloaked satellites. Every piece was designed to stay quiet but observe everything. They studied alien technology, learned from enemy ships, and watched the political games of the galaxy without being noticed. For years, they worked in silence. Children on Earth grew up without seeing the stars, told stories of the past when humans walked on alien soil. But their teachers told them to be patient. "We are not gone," they said. "We are growing." A few voices in the galaxy tried to warn others. Old scientists, ex-diplomats, and curious explorers told tales of strange signals and ghost ships that seemed human. But no one listened. "The humans are gone," the Empire repeated over and over. "There is no threat." But the truth was far more dangerous. Earth itself had become a fortress. Above its skies floated cloaked defense satellites, powered by artificial stars. The oceans hid launch silos. The moon's core had been turned into a data vault guarded by AI systems. And in deep space, far beyond known maps, the first true human fleet was being built. These were not warships like before, small, fast, and easy to destroy. No, these were titans, built with knowledge gathered in silence. Some were shaped like giant black wings, others like spinning crystals. Every ship had its own mind, trained in strategy, diplomacy, and defense. They didn't need to be commanded. They understood their purpose. Inside one of the hidden construction zones, a man named Dr. Ilias Varin stood watching the largest ship ever made by humanity. He was old, his hair white, his hands marked by time, but his mind was sharper than ever. He had once been a diplomat, laughed at by alien leaders. Now he led the Silence Initiative, the final phase of Earth's long plan. Around him, younger officers monitored screens, checked energy levels, and ran tests. There was no panic, no fear, only patience. Elias whispered to himself as he watched the ship's systems activate. "They forgot us. Good. Let them forget a little longer." What made humanity's silence even more effective was how well they understood stories. They didn't fight to win attention. They didn't challenge the Empire publicly. Instead, they let the galaxy write its own fiction, one where Earth failed. And now, when the truth came, it would come like a ghost walking through locked doors. The galaxy had become used to comfort, to the idea that humans were gone. They would not be ready for the return. Meanwhile, strange things began happening in the outer systems. A mining team on a small moon disappeared. The last recording showed shadows moving faster than any known ship. A patrol cruiser near the edge of the spiral arm picked up a signal in old Earth code, a language unused for 100 years. When they went to investigate, they found nothing. The Empire sent more patrols, but they returned empty-handed or didn't return at all. Whispers started among junior officers. What if the humans are still out there? But senior leaders dismissed it. Ghost stories, they said. Back on Earth, underground cities thrived. People lived quietly, but with purpose. Children were trained not just in science and language, but in patience and memory. Every adult remembered what had happened, how the galaxy treated them. But none spoke of revenge. Instead, they spoke of restoration. We don't want to destroy, they said. We want to be seen. As the final ship of the hidden fleet came online, a signal was sent. Not loud, not aggressive, just a soft whisper across the stars. It said, "We are still here." It was sent using an old frequency once used during Earth's first contact. Many wouldn't even notice it. But those who did, those who remembered, would feel a chill. Because if that message was real, then everything the galaxy thought it knew was wrong. Dr. Elias stood on the bridge of the command ship, looking at the stars. The lights around him glowed in soft blue, quiet but alive. The crew waited for his words. He smiled gently. "We've waited long enough," he said. "Let them hear us. Let them see what silence has created." And with that, the fleet began to move, not toward war, not toward attack, but toward truth. The galaxy was about to remember the name it had tried so hard to forget, not with fear, but with disbelief. The signal had been sent, a whisper across the stars, simple yet powerful. "We are still here." It echoed quietly in forgotten frequencies, ones only older communication systems could catch. Most species didn't notice it at all. A few curious minds in smaller civilizations picked up the strange pulse, but they didn't understand it. It was too old, too human. But in the core worlds of the Galactic Empire, where data was scanned by millions of machines every second, the signal did not go completely unnoticed. A junior analyst in the Imperial Communications Center, named Vel Korin, flagged it as unusual. He was young, sharp, and one of the few who had studied ancient Earth codes. When he presented it to his supervisor, she barely glanced at the report before filing it under background noise. Vel tried to insist that it could be important, that it might even be human. But she laughed and reminded him that Earth was gone. 100 years of silence isn't broken by a ghost, she said. Vel didn't agree, but he had learned not to challenge his superiors. What no one knew was that Vel had secretly forwarded the signal to a few old professors, people who once worked with human scientists before Earth withdrew from the galaxy. One of them, Professor Heron, recognized the format immediately. His hands trembled as he read the message over and over. "It's not just human," he whispered to himself. "It's deliberate." But when he tried to share it with the Imperial Science Guild, they shut him down. "This is ancient nonsense," they told him. "Let it go." Yet Heron couldn't let it go. He remembered working beside human researchers long ago, remembered their passion, their speed of learning, their unpredictable nature. He remembered warning the Empire that underestimating humans would be a mistake. And now, with a single line of code, his fear returned. At the same time, more strange events began to unfold across the galaxy. In a neutral trade zone far from the Empire's borders, a merchant convoy reported seeing the ship, massive, silent, and moving like nothing they'd ever witnessed. The merchant captain, an old Zarnian trader who had traveled for 40 years, said the ship didn't show up on scanners and left no heat trail. It was there, he insisted. It stared at us with no weapons, just presence. When he tried to report the encounter, the Trade Council dismissed him. Too much space dust, they joked. You probably saw a shadow. But the old trader knew what he had seen. He had encountered many ships in his time, some pirate, some experimental, but none like this. And in the following weeks, more ships disappeared. First, a mining freighter near the edge of the Osla Nebula, then a scout vessel that had gone too far into uncharted territory. Each time, the last recorded data showed strange distortions, flickers of shapes, power spikes, and unusual silence. No distress calls, just nothing. The Empire noticed the pattern, but chose not to panic. Instead, they called it anomalous activity, a term used often to calm the public while secretly preparing for unknown threats. But still, the warnings came, quietly, and from unexpected places. A group of space monks from the Mirren Order claimed they had meditated near the edge of the silent sector and felt a presence watching them. It is awake now, the head monk declared, his eyes filled with fear. What was once still is moving again. The Empire mocked them, calling them superstitious fools. Even when pirate groups started reporting that entire asteroid bases were missing, taken without any trace of battle or destruction, the official story remained the same, pirates turning on each other. A few brave souls began collecting the reports, scientists, rogue journalists, and retired captains, and they saw a pattern. Every incident was tied to old human territories or trade routes that had once connected to Earth. Yet when they tried to publish their findings, they were silenced. Articles were deleted, broadcasts were shut down, and those who pushed too far vanished. The Empire didn't want fear to spread. They didn't believe in ghosts. Meanwhile, inside a deep command chamber on Earth's hidden moon base, Commander Alina Rose studied the Empire's responses. Her dark eyes scanned intercepted messages and filtered data, showing how the galaxy reacted, or didn't react, to their soft return. She knew this phase was critical. If they ignore us now, she told her officers, they'll never understand what's coming. Alina had been trained since birth, part of the first generation raised under Earth's silence. She had never seen another species, never stepped off Earth's soil, but she had studied every enemy fleet, every alien tactic, every failure of the past. Now she oversaw the signal probes and phantom ships, the quiet warnings that the galaxy refused to hear. Around her, her team worked in calm precision, not with anger but with purpose. They weren't seeking war. They were seeking recognition. But if war came, they would not back down. Not this time. In the galactic capital, a high-ranking military strategist named General Torvak finally noticed something was wrong. He was old, cold, and not easily shaken. But the sheer number of missing ships, strange reports, and silent regions made even him uneasy. He called for an internal review. Who is doing this? He asked his advisors. And why haven't we stopped it? No one had answers. No pirate group was strong enough. No known enemy had this kind of power. Torvak ordered deep scans of the silent sector, but they revealed nothing. Frustrated, he called for retired ambassadors to speak. One of them, a frail alien named Reuven, had once been stationed on Earth. When asked what he thought, he didn't speak right away. Then he said, slowly, "You ignored them too long. You mocked them too many times. If they are back, they will not come to talk." Torvak didn't believe him. He couldn't. The Empire was too powerful to fear an old, forgotten race. And yet, in the shadows of space, Earth's fleet continued to move. Still hidden, still watching. They appeared just long enough to be seen, long enough to make someone whisper, to spread doubt. Their strategy was working. Fear without fighting. Suspense without noise. The galaxy was starting to shift, but no one truly understood the storm that was building. Not yet, and as each warning was ignored, humanity moved one step closer to revealing the truth. In the vast silence of space, where only the stars whispered their ancient songs, something new stirred, something old yet unfamiliar to the present galaxy. For centuries, first contact had become a ritual, a formal greeting between advanced civilizations, full of diplomatic speeches, trade agreements, and peaceful intentions. But this contact was different. It wasn't announced. It wasn't invited. It wasn't even fully understood. It came slowly, quietly, like a shadow creeping under a closed door. At first, there were just sightings, unmarked ships that hovered on the edge of sensor range, blinking in and out like ghosts. These ships didn't respond to hails. They didn't attack, but they also didn't flee. They watched, recorded, and vanished. The first official contact came when the Empire sent a science vessel, the Flare, to investigate a derelict space station floating near the edge of the silent sector. The crew was cautious, trained for exploration, not war. They found the station cold and empty, but inside, something was waiting. It wasn't a creature or weapon, but a message. A holographic recording played as they entered the main chamber. A human face appeared, calm, clean-shaven, wearing a simple dark uniform. The man didn't introduce himself. He simply said, "To those who remember us, we have returned. To those who forgot, we never left." Then the hologram vanished, and the station's systems shut down completely. The crew stood in stunned silence. No one spoke for several minutes. The Flare returned to Imperial space with the recording, and it quickly reached the Empire's core. Panic didn't spread at once. Most people didn't even understand the message. But among the older officials, the ones who had read history and remembered Earth's silence, a cold fear began to grow. Across the galaxy, more encounters followed. Merchant ships passing through trade lanes received strange pings, ancient human greetings, pre-recorded and sent from unknown origins. Security patrols found empty ships floating in perfect condition, untouched yet completely powered down. On one such ship, a crew of engineers found a room filled with historical human data, battles, inventions, and videos of Earth's cities before the silence. Everything was preserved like a museum, but there were no humans inside. It was a message, a warning, and a memory all at once. Some said it was peaceful. Others felt it was a threat. In one corner of the galaxy, a warlord from the Threx Dominion tried to attack one of the strange human vessels. His ship locked weapons and opened fire, but the human ship didn't move. It simply absorbed the blast, and within moments, the Threx ship lost power completely. The warlord's crew screamed as the lights dimmed and systems failed. Just before total shutdown, their screens lit up with one sentence: "You were warned." They were later rescued by Empire forces, shaken and unable to speak of what had happened. The ship that attacked was never found again. And yet, the humans still had not spoken directly. They were present, active, and watching, but silent. The Empire's leaders gathered in secret chambers, their expressions tense and uncertain. General Torvak, now more cautious than before, demanded a response. "If they want to talk, then let them," he said. "But we will not sit and wait." An emergency diplomatic vessel was prepared, one equipped with old human language databases and trained in voice. Its mission: make peaceful contact, understand intentions, and ensure the safety of the Empire. The vessel, named the Silver Wind, set course toward Earth's last known sector, now labeled as Forbidden Space by ancient law. As it approached, all systems worked normally until it crossed a dark line in space where no maps existed. The moment it did, the stars seemed to fade, and space became unusually quiet. Suddenly, the ship's sensors detected something massive ahead, a structure so large it covered the view like a moon. At first, they thought it was a planet, but soon they realized it was something else entirely, a floating fortress built from hundreds of joined ships, satellites, and unknown technology. A voice echoed inside the ship, not from speakers, but from deep inside the crew's minds. It spoke softly, clearly, and in perfect galactic common. "You have crossed into human space. State your purpose." The envoys, trained for diplomacy, responded immediately. "We come in peace, on behalf of the Empire. We seek dialogue, understanding, and the truth." There was silence for a long time. Then the voice returned. "Then listen." The crew of the Silver Wind were granted permission to board a dock on the massive structure. As they stepped out, they expected guards or weapons, but instead they found silence and holograms. The walls were lined with memories, scenes of Earth's golden age, its fall, its wars, and its rebirth. They walked through long corridors showing humanity's return from extinction, building ships in hidden planets, training soldiers in silence, and waiting for the day they would rise again. In the final room, they found a single man, older, wearing a long dark coat. He looked tired but strong. "I am Admiral Kellen of the United Terran Command," he said, "and you are the first outsiders to see this place in over a century." The envoys asked many questions: why humanity vanished, why they returned, and what they wanted now. Kellen answered with honesty. "We left because the galaxy betrayed us. You feared our growth, our speed, our minds. So you turned on us. But we did not forget. We watched. We learned. We grew." The envoys were nervous. One of them asked, "Is this a warning?" Kellen's expression was calm. "It's an offer. Recognize us now, or be reminded later." The Silver Wind returned with the message. The Empire's leaders were divided. Some called for peace, others for preparation. But one thing was clear. The humans were not just back. They were stronger, faster, and more united than ever. And they had made their move without firing a single shot. First contact had happened. Again. But this time, the humans were not reaching out as equals. They were returning as something far greater, and no one knew what would come next. The galaxy had always understood power through the same lens: fleets, weapons, invasions, and destruction. For centuries, empires rose and fell through bloodshed, and the Galactic Empire had survived by being stronger than its enemies, smarter than its rivals, and more brutal than any threat. But now, as humanity returned, something was different. They had fleets, yes, and technology so advanced that even the most brilliant scientists of the Empire couldn't understand how it worked. But what truly disturbed the Empire wasn't just the ships or the strength. It was the silence, the patience, and the control the humans showed. They were everywhere, and yet no battles were fought. Not a single shot had been fired, and still, entire regions of space were shifting in loyalty, drifting closer to human-controlled zones. Trade stations once loyal to the Empire now followed human regulations. Communication networks began broadcasting in old Earth dialects. Civilizations that had once feared the humans now spoke their name with admiration, not terror. The question wasn't who was stronger. It was why humanity wasn't using that strength to destroy. Instead, they changed the galaxy by simply existing. In the outer ring of the Tarlon cluster, a planet named Vedra 9 had long been a loyal supply world of the Empire. Its leaders, trained by Imperial doctrine, prepared to resist human presence. But when their planetary network was hacked by unknown sources, they didn't receive a threat. Instead, their systems were upgraded, their failing power grid stabilized. The weather control stations, which had been offline for decades, started functioning again. The people saw their planet bloom with life. Food production doubled, and illnesses that had plagued them vanished. The source of all this was a single transmission. Terra remembers her children. There was no demand, no request for loyalty, no soldiers marching into their cities, just quiet improvements that made life better. The governor tried to warn the Empire, but his people refused to listen. They began calling themselves a friend of Earth. Similar events happened on dozens of other planets. Mining colonies received new tools from nowhere. Pirate activity vanished in sectors where no human ships were seen. Trade routes were protected by invisible escorts that neutralized threats silently, without causing damage. The humans were fighting a different kind of war, one where the enemy was ignorance and corruption, and the weapon was kindness mixed with quiet, undeniable superiority. Inside the Empire's core, fear spread faster than ever. The High Council gathered daily now, holding long discussions in hidden chambers, where even their own AI systems were shut off. They couldn't understand why humanity wasn't conquering through war. General Torvak, who once believed in brute force, now found himself frustrated by inaction. "They are everywhere," he growled during one meeting. "They control more with a whisper than we do with a command. This is not peace. It is dominance without resistance." But others disagreed. Chancellor Relma, known for her political mind, saw it differently. "They are teaching us," she said. "They are showing us what power means when it is held by minds that value something more than fear." But even she could not fully trust the silence, because with every peaceful act, humanity grew stronger. Their fleets didn't just stay hidden. They expanded, with new ships built on unknown stations across systems never mapped by Imperial scouts. Their technology remained a mystery. Their soldiers, rarely seen, were rumored to be trained in places where time moved differently, where gravity was harsher, and where even the strongest alien warriors could not survive more than a week. No one could confirm it, but no one dared to test it either. The moment that shifted everything came without warning. A fleet of alien slavers from the Karthok Syndicate had taken a small moon colony under their control. It was not an imperial world, but the Empire knew of its location. In the past, they might have ignored such events. Local wars weren't their concern. But this time, before the Empire could respond, a human signal cut across the emergency channels of half the galaxy. It was a live broadcast. It showed a single human ship arriving at the slaver moon. The ship didn't fire weapons. Instead, it sent out a low-frequency pulse that disabled every Karthok vessel within range. Then dozens of human drones descended silently. They freed every captive, shut down the slaver operations, and left within an hour. Not a single life was taken. No buildings were destroyed. The slavers were left alive, but unable to operate ever again. A message appeared at the end of the broadcast. "We do not kill to prove strength. We build to end fear." The galaxy watched in stunned silence. The broadcast became the most shared message in history. People who had feared war now looked to humanity for protection, not through violence, but through certainty. The Empire's control began to slip, not because of invasion, but because its citizens no longer believed it was the only answer. Worlds that had once relied on the Empire's security now requested guidance from human AI systems. Students in Imperial universities began studying human history, not the edited version, but the real one, full of pain, mistakes, and recovery. The idea that humans were dangerous was replaced by something more terrifying. They were better. Not perfect, but focused, patient, and always 2 steps ahead. Intelligence agencies inside the Empire discovered hidden Terran information hubs that could predict economic shifts before they happened. Military analysts found that human satellites could scan energy signatures across 10 light-years with perfect accuracy. Human medicine was curing diseases before they even became outbreaks, and yet still, they made no demands. They weren't asking for control, they were simply offering help. And help was something too powerful to ignore. In every corner of the galaxy, the phrase, "the Terran way," became a symbol of calm strength. It meant balance, fairness, and action with wisdom. And those who opposed it, they found their systems quietly failing, their corruption exposed by anonymous leaks, their fleets delayed by unexplained malfunctions. The Galactic Empire, once the most feared power, was now left with a choice. They could continue resisting a force that refused to become their enemy, or they could accept that the rules had changed. Power was no longer about showing strength through war. Humanity had introduced a new way. Power through presence, power through improvement, power without war. It was not weakness. It was control so absolute, so carefully placed, that even the strongest enemies had no way to strike back. Because how do you fight someone who doesn't fire a weapon, who doesn't threaten, who simply makes things better wherever they go? And more importantly, why would you want to? The stars were watching, and in their quiet gaze, the truth became clear. Humanity had already won, not with war, but with will. Across the stars, the galaxy stood at a crossroads it had never imagined. The once unshakable galactic empire, which had ruled with pride and fear for centuries, now found itself quietly outmaneuvered, not by war, but by a force that never asked to rule: humanity. The last meeting of the Imperial High Council was held in a chamber carved deep beneath the surface of Orthon Prime, where the walls shimmered with protective energy fields and ancient holograms of the Empire's long and bloody victories. But today the room was filled with silence, not celebration. Every leader, general, and strategist sat with tension in their spines as they listened to the most recent reports. More than half of their border worlds had begun adopting human technologies and trade laws. Systems once loyal were now using Terran protocols for governance. Even their own military academies had begun secretly using human training modules because they produced better results. It was not an invasion. It was a transformation. And the most terrifying part was that no one could stop it. Humanity had not fired a single shot in their return. Yet, they had dismantled the entire structure of power across known space by simply being better, smarter, faster, kinder, and more advanced in every possible way. For some, this new reality was unacceptable. General Torvak, his face marked with old battle scars, slammed his fist on the table and demanded a show of strength. "We still have the largest war fleet in the galaxy," he shouted. "We must attack now, while they're spread thin across their zones." But others, like Chancellor Relna, who had watched the subtle shift for years, knew that a military attack would not just fail, it would be the end of everything. She had studied the Terran behavior, the psychology of patience, the strategic use of silence, and how they avoided war not because they were weak, but because they didn't need to fight when they could shape the galaxy without drawing blood. In the far reaches of space, at a place once called the Dead Line, a region feared for its rogue stars and magnetic storms, a massive structure slowly took shape. Known only as the Beacon, it had been built by human engineers and AI minds in complete secrecy. It was not a weapon, though its energy readings rivaled the might of an entire fleet. It was a signal tower, a gateway, and a symbol. When activated, it sent out a message that traveled faster than light across every system, in every language, to every corner of civilization. "The cycle of fear ends now," it said. "All who seek peace, growth, and unity, step forward. All who seek control through suffering, step aside." The message did not threaten. It invited. And that was what made it so powerful. Dozens of worlds immediately responded. The Farkan Council, once allies of the Empire, broke their treaty and joined the human alliance within days. The Sauriac trade halls, famous for their greed, offered free access to their resource fields under human regulation. Even ancient neutral systems like Killor Prime requested inclusion in the new Terran network. No bribes were paid. No threats were made. They joined because they saw the future, and it no longer belonged to the Empire. It belonged to those who could lead without destruction. Humanity didn't demand loyalty. They earned it through action, through truth, and through a level of stability that the old systems could never deliver. Back on Earth, a place now transformed into the central hub of galactic diplomacy and innovation, the United Terran Council met for the first time with representatives from hundreds of alien civilizations. The room was vast, with curved glass walls showing Earth's blue skies and distant orbiting platforms. There were no royal titles, no thrones, no declarations of dominance. Every being had a seat, and every voice was given time. At the center stood a human diplomat named Aria Nolan, whose calm voice had already brought several ancient enemies to the same table. She explained that this new order was not about one race controlling the galaxy. It was about all intelligent life moving forward together, without the chains of the past. Some leaders remained skeptical, especially those who had grown fat and powerful under the Empire's system of fear. But Arya reminded them that fear was no longer useful, because the people no longer accepted it. Across the stars, ordinary beings, farmers, workers, students, healers, were now connected through Terran networks. They shared knowledge, solved problems together, and helped each other rise. Power had shifted to the people, guided by a silent strength that came from Earth, and that kind of power could not be stolen or destroyed by ships or bombs. In the final days of the Empire, as its capital world prepared for what many believed would be the last resistance, something strange happened. Human ships arrived, not with weapons raised, but with supplies. They brought medicine for the sick, food for the starving, and data packs for the children to learn. They offered help, even to their oldest enemies, and that act broke the last pieces of hatred that had survived in the shadows. Soldiers dropped their weapons, civilians opened their doors. The leaders of the Empire, one by one, stepped down not in defeat, but in quiet understanding. They saw the truth. This was not the fall of an empire. This was the rise of something better. A civilization that had faced extinction, rebuilt itself in silence, returned with unmatched strength, and chose unity over conquest. A people that had every reason to take revenge, but instead offered a hand of peace. That was the power of humanity. Not in the size of their fleets or the reach of their machines, but in the choice to use their strength to build instead of destroy. And so, a new order began, not forced, not feared, but chosen. In time, the name Terran came to mean more than just human. It became a symbol of cooperation, of rebuilding, and of facing the darkness without becoming it. Laws were rewritten, guided by Terran ethics. Education systems across alien worlds began teaching Terran history, not as conquerors, but as survivors who chose peace. Crime rates fell. Hunger faded. Diseases disappeared. And for the first time in thousands of years, the galaxy was not ruled by fear, but by hope. The stars, which once burned under the shadows of war, now shone brighter, not because the darkness was gone, but because light had finally found a way to rise above it. And in that light, every being, human or alien, had a place.